Hi everyone, Teddy Baldessar here, and in this video, we're gonna be answering some of your questions, Q&A. Had you guys ask some questions on Instagram, YouTube, X, Facebook. We're gonna be going through those here today. As always, if you wanna have your questions answered in the future for videos like this, be sure to be following on all different platforms. First question asks, watch prices beyond 5K to 7K don't feel logical, almost made up. I need some help understanding. I think I'd throw it back at you and say, I don't know if there is really anything to understand, because buying a watch, whether it's over $5,000 or under $5,000, is not a logical purchase. We don't buy in general for logic, no matter what we're pretty much talking about. If we bought based on logic, we'd see a lot more minivans than SUVs on the streets, but that's just not how people buy. There's an element of craft that comes into play. It's definitely some posturing that goes up and positioning yourself to feel a certain way and how you are going to present yourself to others. This goes with the clothes that we wear. This goes with the cars that we drive. This goes with the homes that we decide to own. And it goes with the watches that we decide to wear. This is always gonna be an element of that. Now, watches do differentiate slightly just because there is this romantic craftsmanship that is tied to watches as you start to go up. But there's also, of course, a status play here. And as you start to see things move up to that tier, there are going to be different watches that are going to appeal to different types of objectives of that owner. There are going to be watches that are going to appeal more to that status element. There are going to be watches that are going to appeal more to the craftsmanship. And like anything, there are going to be diminishing returns as you continue to climb up in price. What I would recommend is don't really get fixated on what the price of the watch is outside of, of course, your budget, but don't think that that's going to be a linear progression of enjoyment by spending a certain amount of money. You can have just as much as enjoyment on something that costs you very little compared to something that costs a whole lot of your world. So to keep all this in balance, keep this in the right manner, but also recognize that logic is not why we buy watches. And I'll say this as somebody that does this for a living. I mean, watches can be very excessive. They are not needed. They're things that are nice to have. They're beautiful little objects, but I think we should see them as that. What is very interesting though is I think the rationalization, as much as you can say that, around is the watch worth it for that money, as you actually start to get to the very ultra high tier, it almost becomes even more clear that it is actually worth it. And my meaning behind that is there's no questioning hand finishing, artistry, like the crafts of certain techniques in horology. If we're talking about rose engine work, high complications and things of that sort, beveling individual components, this can't be done by a machine. This has to be done through not automated methods. It has to be done through the craft that was developed centuries ago. And once you get to that ultra bespoke high tier of high horology, that's where you almost see this expression of art where there's almost this aha again that, hey, this actually does make sense. Now, will you spend that amount of money? Are you in the market for that watch? That's a whole nother story, but can you appreciate it? I think this is all coming into looking at this with a healthy lens. Next question, what do you think about vintage watch collecting? Is it something you'd ever get into? Not only is it something that I would get into, it is something that was very much important for me when I was first getting into watches. I was somebody that's a little bit different. Yes, I did dabble with new first, but I quickly dove into vintage because I really enjoyed the whole concept of buying something that has just lived from another era. It shows its wear. It spoke to me and what I value from objects and just the longevity of things. But what I realized very quickly was vintage is a totally different animal, and I think you have to recognize it as such. Yes, it's watch collecting still, but it's like playing bass guitar and then going to a six string and saying like it's the same deal. It's a different instrument and you have to flex some different muscles to be able to get to that end result that you want. It's not the same collecting journey that you can expect for new watches versus vintage. I recently was sitting down with Eric Wind. He is one of the leaders when it comes to vintage watch collecting. We have a video that will come out on this channel, so be on the lookout for that. And it's just crazy when you talk to somebody like that because it's a drastically different way about going through your expertise of watches. And it's a different world. You're a historian. You have to always research and find so much information out there that is very hard to obtain, and there's so much incentive for, on the commercial side, trying to bend the truth in any way possible. Just by fabricating like a dial and making it look tarnished in some way will allow that watch to maybe be worth tens of thousands of dollars more. As soon as I started to learn more about vintage, the more I recognize there's a lot of people that can bend the rules very quickly, and you have to know what you're looking for. This is for the high stakes type of buyer. If you are somebody that just wants a vintage watch, don't really care about perfect condition, or maybe just don't want to invest that much much money into it, that's a whole different story. But as you start spending more money in vintage, you do start to look around and see that there is a lot of games that are played in the field. Now, I still love vintage watches. I own vintage watches, but I think knowledge is your ally. Recognize some of these pitfalls that can happen as you start to get into vintage, and that will, I think, allow you to have a better look at the entire game. And it is an entirely different game compared to buying new. I do think we should talk a little bit more about vintage on this channel, and that's why I had Eric come on the channel, so we're gonna be working on that. But I think you have to buy the seller, know what you're talking about, lean into a specific genre that you like, and really immerse yourself in knowing as much as possible before you start going crazy and buying left and right. So before we proceed, we put out some really great articles in the past few weeks. So our team just recently put together a list of Cartier tank alternatives for 2025, linked in the description down below. Check that one out. Bilal.khan from our team also took a closer look at inspecting the curious case of watchmaking from China, looking at the pros and cons, as well as the growing presence with 15 brands to know from the region. And then also we put together a list of 15 to 20 top picks across our team, looking at graduation gifts for this year. Now, I know it's a little bit after that, but still pretty cool little list looking at all different price ranges for those gifts. If interested in those, check them out in the description down below. Next question, do you think the Dynapulse Escapement will eventually be rolled out in all Rolex models, including the OP? I can only speculate here. I can't say for certain, but I would assume that Rolex is going to roll this out to many different collections within their entire lineup. Now, how many will that be? That is something I can't be so certain about, because this does seem like it is going to be first rolled out with watches that are going to be more towards that tier where the Land Dweller was. I couldn't see them maybe going next to the OP, because that would send a certain message. But the reason why I think you will see some expansion around the Dynapulse is, one, it's just too much of a statement to not have it be unveiled into a variety of different watches. But the way that Rolex presented this when we had our meeting with them was, are you ready for the next chapter? That's how they prompted us to let us know, like, hey, this is what's coming next. So you don't say that unless this is a look towards the future and what their path towards chronometry is going to be in the next decade and beyond. There are many different routes that Rolex can take with the Dynapulse, and really makes it interesting for me to think about the possibilities. One thing they did not talk about was the magnetic resistance. I thought that was very weird, just because there would probably be some huge upside here when you're talking about magnetic resistance. Could this be something that they're going to roll out in the next few years, announce a specific magnetic standard? Maybe they have their new and improved test to go head to head with the master chronometer, maybe being like a superlative chronometer. I don't know, they'll probably come up with a better word or language around how they would describe it, but that's something that I could imagine happening in the future, developing their own standard now with the Dynapulse, because there's so much additional upside that can come probably from this escapement concept. Another thing that comes up is just how would they integrate this with complications? Could you see something like this ending up in the Daytona with added complications? Sometimes this could lead to some energy consumption that is not typically there for three-hand watches. So this could be a nice additional value add, and also be a high beat chronograph, which is another point that could really allow the Daytona to be elevated. There's so many paths that they could go with a escapement concept like this. And I don't think that they did this just solely for one watch. It was interesting that they did it just with the Land Dweller to start a new collection. Makes sense that they would do that in some ways. This escapement concept is too groundbreaking for them to just hold this within the Land Dweller. The only question will be, where will be the entry point? That is something I can't be so certain of. They could redefine how they would just do this across the entire range, but I would imagine the next steps would be more in that $10,000 to $15,000 range. You'll start to see this become available. If they jump below $10,000 and something like the Oyster Perpetual, that's a bold move. And as soon as that happens, there's your answer right there, that this will then go into every single collection. Next question, will there be enough watchmakers in the future to service the watches sold today? There's a huge risk for this, and this is a challenge not only here in the US, this is a challenge internationally, in Switzerland, in Germany. This is something that could absolutely devastate the future of watches, no question about it. If you look at the total approximate watchmakers in the world right now, it's around 25,000. That's a number that I've seen as an estimate. It's hard to know exactly what that total amount of watchmakers is, but just to say that there is a massive watchmaker shortage, that we really need to see an uptick in watchmakers in the coming years. I said this in a recent video. If you took the 4 professional sports leagues, all the players, from the NHL, the NFL, the NBA, and the MLB, you'd have roughly just over 4,000 different active players, 4,000 watchmakers. So you're more likely to walk into a professional athlete from one of these 4 leagues than you are a watchmaker from the United States. So this is a dire issue, and this is gonna be something that we're gonna have to confront. The other challenge is where the training happens for watchmaking. There's only so many people that can be trained every single year by a program like WOSTEP. They are accepting, hundreds of applicants. This is not something where you're seeing thousands of people being rolled out as trained watchmakers every single year. It's very small numbers we're talking about. And then in addition to that, just the brands, there's so much competition amongst them, and they're all trying to retain talent in their own ways, attract them to live into certain areas in the world. All the manufacturing facilities for watchmakers are in these very rural areas in Switzerland, in Germany. Like if you've been to Glashütte, Germany, there's not much going on there, and that was a big challenge there as well. You could see brands even actively trying to poach. They had like signs on the side of their buildings trying to get watchmakers that are going to other brands to come work for them. It's a whole wild world, and on top of it all, it's a trade that is not really seen as a young person's trade. Most of the watchmakers you're going to find are going to be in their 50s, maybe their 60s. If they're younger, they're probably in their 40s. There are less watchmakers in their 20s and 30s now than there were years ago. So you're going to see this gap of people being aged out of the trade. So we need to start seeing a huge shift here if we're going to be able to maintain what we want in the future, which is watchmakers to be sustained. But this is easily one of the biggest issues facing the watch industry today. And just as one final point here, I mentioned this also in a previous video, just to give a sense to how desperate some of these brands are or how dire the need is for more watchmakers, Rolex in the United States has a program down in Texas where they will train you for an 18-month program, and they will pay you to be a watchmaker and go through the program. They'll give you $1,800 a month, free tuition, and then also at the end, the final exam is in Switzerland. Well, they'll actually fly you to Switzerland to do that exam. This is just a perfect representation of exactly what is facing the industry and why they're going to extreme measures to try to correct it. Sean asks, I struggle to get rid of a watch once it's in my collection. Some never see wrist time. What are your thoughts on cutting watches from the collection if you don't wear it within 6 months or any specific time frame? So a few things for myself. I have a different view on this probably than you have to have, just because for me, it's a priority for myself to own as many watches as I possibly can and wear as many watches as I possibly can, because that allows me to be an authority on this and know as much as I can about the industry. So I have a different approach now as I would maybe before doing this as a career, but I am still a collector and I think about this a lot. So what I have found for myself that is very helpful and recognizing is this is a natural occurrence. This is the case for watches, but it's also the case for like even the clothes you wear. You may have heard like that saying, 20% of clothes that we wear 80% of the time. And if you look at your wardrobe, you probably recognize that you're in that range as well. And for our watches, it's a similar idea. So there is an element of certain watches you're gonna have favoritism towards, and then there's gonna be those watches you don't even wear at all. And for me, I think there's a couple ways you can look at this. One is if you can sell it and move on from it, then that's something that you can absolutely do. And that's a natural progression for many collectors. They'll sell something and do it with maybe a new intention in mind. I wouldn't just sell to sell. I would sell with an end result. If it's for freeing up some money to be able to buy something new, that is a perfectly reasonable thing to think about. What I have done, and I think I really enjoy doing, is actually gifting people watches, especially if it's not an expensive watch, but I've gifted some reasonably expensive watches before, and I feel very good. The exchange there is not true monetary currency. It's the currency of joy and passing on something that you enjoy, but no longer maybe get the same amount of fulfillment from, and maybe you've just aged as a collector. To me, that's a great middle ground, especially if you can, take that cost and pass that along to somebody else. Like sometimes it's just almost not even worth it. It's better to get the emotional currency than it is the actual value to buy something new. And also I know that that's going to someone that's gonna really cherish it. Also, if you're maybe not wanting to give it completely away, maybe give it away for a good price. That's another thing that I've really enjoyed as well. But I think you need to look at the realities of what you own and find where joy can come from. If you're no longer getting joy from wearing it yourself, how can you pass along that joy or find joy and extract it by moving on from that watch, by selling it, or maybe giving it away, or giving it away at a very reasonable price to somebody else that's into the hobby. I also don't think you should force a watch on somebody else. If you're gonna gift something, to someone, you want to find it goes to the right owner, because it only works and you only feel that joy if you know that you gave something to someone that really is going to take what you liked about that watch and really live it on forward for the years to come. David asks, given the price to have a mechanical watch service, does it make sense to have sub $1,000 watches serviced, or is there a certain price point for a mechanical watch where it makes more sense to view it as disposable? This is a great question. I think this is where I really want to push the idea you have to build connection with your watches, because if you just do the logical thing of dollars and cents, this is how much it costs to get serviced, this is how much I paid for it, then a lot of times you're going to find that many of these under $1,000 purchases might not even make sense to service. But I think that defeats the purpose of owning watches. This is why I'm all about, wearing your watches well, beating them up a little bit. I think it's okay. People are always afraid to scratch up their watches. I think that's silly. People definitely disagree with me on that, but I like showing signs of wear. I like having experience with your watches. It allows you to enjoy them more. That's where you build the sentimental value and you can enjoy it, where this cost ratio is going to be a little bit different. But let's also be real. There are complete overhauls for movements under $1,000 where the ratio might be a little bit off. This is why Seiko is pretty great though, because they have the ability to service watches at a pretty reasonable rate. And this is the case for a lot of just off the shelf calibers in general, but like a 4R34 service, I checked right before going to camera for this just because I was curious. It's $159 before tax and shipping. So if you bought like a Seiko 5 GMT, ratio is not so far off where if you had a lot of great times with that watch, enjoyed it, I don't think that's a disposable good, and they do tend to last a long time. I think the service interval itself also makes a lot of sense. It's not even just the cost of the watch, but what is the cost per wear that you're getting out of that watch, and what's that return on value? But then there are other cases where it's gonna be hundreds of dollars to service a watch under $1,000. A great example of this is a Seiko chronograph movement. If you're buying one of those for $500 to $1,000 or something like of that sort, and then you go service it down the line and find that that's almost the cost of the watch itself to service it, that's gonna be a tougher pill to swallow and more of a challenge. So I think you do have to think about these ratios when you're looking and thinking about this like long term. But I think this is an important point. You bring up here that if you don't have the right thought process around watches, say under $1,000, especially under $500, these watches, just even being mechanical, can still be disposable if you don't have the right connection to those watches and you don't build this sentimental connection to them. This question asks, is Grand Seiko's SPGA 415 a good buy, or any other recommendations? So I would say it's a fantastic buy. It's one of my favorite Grand Seiko models. I love the Four Seasons collections. I love the 62GS case. It's maybe my favorite case of any Grand Seiko. So the only thing I would say is maybe just look at some other 62GS case models, like the SBGH 295. You could also look at, of course, the Shunbun, and there are some other watches that use the 62GS case, but those might be on the short list that I think you could find some appreciation and connection to. Even in the original renderings, I was pretty much on the fence between this and the SPGA 413, but I've just over time come to appreciate the SPGA 413 a little bit for my own personal taste. But just to give you some encouragement with this, Will, who is originally was the first employee of this company, he joined us in 2019, and he started a customer service when we weren't even an authorized retailer for any watch brands. We were just selling straps. And he also doubled as being the guy that shot like every single watch for the channel from 2019 through around mid to late 2023. So thousands and thousands of watches this guy shot in that period. He probably had more experience handling watches than some people in market research in this industry that are trying to see all the different competition. Like, this guy had a lot of experience holding different watches. And what is the watch now that he operates out of the boutique? He's one of the sales reps here, watch concierge people. If you ever are looking for a watch, he's a guy that you might have spoken to on our site. He wears the SPGA 415 as his daily. So that is the watch that he decided as his daily watch. He wears it all the time. So there's a nice little data point for you if you're on the fence. Next question, are you cool with the Hesalite crystal on the Omega Moon watch? I mean, yes, I wear it all the time. I like the Hesalite personally. Like I mentioned earlier, I like things that wear in, they show their charm, and the Hesalite does. I mean, I think if you look at just the crystal itself, I mean, I like these little micro scratches. I'm a weird guy. I don't know why I'm into things that like show their wear, but that is just me. Like this is the case for like the denim I'm wearing. This is the case for the boots that I have in my collection, my footwear, jackets, just leather goods. I like seeing that wear. Just as an example of this, there's this, I've never partaken in this, but it's something called the Stitch Down Patina Thunderdome. It's like this whole idea around wearing these boots for like 6 months and just wearing them to all hell and just seeing what can patina the best. Like, I think that's cool, and seeing these transformations of like leather goods, like that's what attracts me. And I almost have the same philosophy for watches, because that allows you to see a watch through your own experience. And I mean, these watches are gonna last a lifetime, beyond a lifetime. And if it's going to last that long, like I don't think you have anything to be afraid of. You should wear it well. And I think the vintage charm of the Hesalite is something that spoke to me. Now, will most people probably resonate with that? Probably not. They're gonna go with the sapphire because you can see the movement on the back, which that's absolutely a fair point. And they also like the resistance to scratches that comes with sapphire. Next question asks, what is the best GADA watch or go anywhere, do anything watch below $4,000? Now, $4,000 is not the same price tier, and you don't have the same amount of watches available to you now as you did years ago. I'll mention two. One will be from Nomos. This is the Nomos Club Sport Neomatic. This is 200 meters of water resistant. You get a bracelet on a Nomos watch. It might not have exactly what you want from the versatility standpoint. It might be a little bit too casual, but I think you could absolutely dress this up in certain scenarios. Maybe not for a tux type of scenario, but for a lot of more semi-formal type of environments, I think this could absolutely work. But the reason why I'm mentioning this here, you're getting suitable water resistance, more than necessary water resistance, and from a brand that also is producing this under $4,000, DUW caliber. This is their own escapement that they are producing. I mean, Nomos is so underestimated as a true manufacturer. To get this under $4,000, I think is tremendous value, and something that I think a lot of people, they look at Nomos, they see it as this like design brand, which yes, they have very sensible designs, very recognizable in what they're going for, but it more is known as a manufacturer if you actually understand what they're about. The other one I'll mention is the Tudor Black Bay 1, and this is something that a lot of people didn't talk about at Watches and Wonders, but there's now an official name for the non-diving Tudor Black Bays, Tudor Black Bay 1. These are just over $4,000, but you're getting chronometer, solid bracelet, different case sizes to choose from, different dial colors to go along with it. This is about as versatile of a watch that you're gonna come across, regardless of price. Moving along to this one here, you only get to wear one type of strap for the rest of your life. What are you choosing? Well, if bracelet qualified, I would just say bracelet because that's gonna be the most versatile choice, but that's probably cheating, so I'm gonna give you a real answer. I would go with a lightly to no padding, like almost probably no padding, a thin shell cordovan strap. I think that is clean. It's also very versatile. Yes, you might be saying that you can't get that wet, which fair play, but I really don't even get many of my watches wet to begin with, and I think it would work in more situations than it would not. A NATO on that side, yes, it would be able to take more of a beating, but I do think there'd be more environments where I would find it appropriate to wear a shell cordovan strap than I would a NATO strap. So that would probably be my choice. I'd say matching stitching as well. I don't want any contrast stitching because I think that'll allow it to have even more versatility. It's very comfortable. Don't have to wear it in too because of the not having padding on it. I don't think a reptilian strap would be as much my speed. I do have several watches on reptilian straps, but if I'd only pick one, I don't know if I'd go that route. Rubber is not really my cup of tea, and NATO straps, I like them for the circumstance, just maybe not every single day of my life. Art asks, do you own and wear a quartz watch? And yes, I do wear a quartz watch. Not all the time, I'll be honest. Most of the time I am absolutely wearing mechanical watches. I'd say 95% of the time, maybe more than that, I'm not wearing a quartz watch. And when I wear quartz, I tend to like to wear digital watches, not anything analog. If I'm gonna go analog, I might as well wear a mechanical watch. I don't know why that is. It's just how my brain thinks and how I look at it. I mean, I just find comfort. If I'm gonna go for it, I'm gonna really go for it and get all the upside that comes with quartz. Get digital timekeeping, something like a DW5610, like that's something I would wear if I'm just wanting to not care at all what's on my wrist, I will go that route. Casio A168, I have one of those as well. I wear that quite regularly too. You might have seen me wear that in videos from here and there, especially when I talk about digital watches on camera. That's usually like, that gets me in the mood. I'll wear that a lot. But usually when I'm out and about and doing specific chores or activities, DW5610 would probably be the standard choice for myself. But on most days, I'm gonna wear a mechanical watch that's just has a little more romantic value for me and what I like. There's nothing rational about it and why I decided to go mostly for mechanical, but I respect Quartz. I think they absolutely deserve a place in most people's watch collections, if not all people's watch collections. But those are probably my two that I wear the most, but I do have others as well. But all right, guys, that is our video here today, looking at some of your questions. If you enjoy these style of videos, please give this one a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Be sure to be following on all of our different social channels to have some of your questions answered in future videos. Also, definitely check out teddybaldestar.com. Teddybaldestar.com is an authorized dealer for all the brands we carry, 35 brands in total. I think actually maybe a little bit more than that now. We had some new additions to the site. Every purchase from our site comes with quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. Also, if you're ever in the Cleveland market and are looking to buy a watch, definitely check out our boutique. And people that run that store are like you and me. They are watch enthusiasts and they'd love to help you out. Any purchase from our store, any purchase online or in store helps us with continuing to put out this content, and we absolutely love what we do, so we really do appreciate all the support. Guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.